I always tell people authenticity is not a box you check. It is a moment by moment decision.
Welcome back to the Redefining Wealth podcast. I am Patrice Washington, and what you should know is you've stepped into a space where we believe that wealth is so much more than just money and material possessions. Around here, we believe in the original 12th century definition of wealth, which says it's about the condition of well-being and happiness. And I know that one of those places that we need to be well is in what I call our people pillar. See, the foundation of the Redefining Wealth podcast are the 6 pillars of wealth. And the second pillar is the people pillar. It's about creating relationships that matter. But sometimes in order to really have those deep connections and genuine relationships, you might have to walk in a little offense. I'm dedicating this entire season to my dear friend, Rachel Luna, who may have left this earth on August 4th, 2025, but she was so generous enough to leave an amazing body of work. And purpose chasers all over the world have been reading Permission to Offend with me. And here on the podcast for this season, I have been calling in some of the most amazing voices that I know in the space, women who have given themselves permission to offend in different parts of their lives to really bring this body of work to life. And in chapter 5, Rachel talks about walking in offense, and she says that you need to have an offense capacity quotient. This is your personal measure of how much offense you can give or receive while still standing firmly in your truth. The higher your quotient, the more freedom you walk in and the more faith you carry. When I think about someone who embodies that principle through and through, I think about my own coach, Varian Brandon. Now, years ago, she came on the podcast for an episode called Committed to the Truth. And baby, that was one of the conversations that let me know she needed to be my coach. I wanted her to be my coach, and she has been since 2021. Now, Varian doesn't run her business the way most people think you should. You talk about someone who will offend and disrupt an energy. She does not care about websites. She doesn't care about your emails. She doesn't host a podcast, and she's not looking to write a New York Times bestseller. And yes, she runs a 7-figure coaching business. Why? Because she lives what Rachel taught so well. She doesn't care necessarily about how people perceive her. She doesn't care if her truth offends. She doesn't care about defending or performing. Varian cares about alignment. She cares about truth and the real work of walking with giants. Giants are leaders who carry massive mandates and already know success, but we come to her because we want to live fully aligned at all times. She is the ultimate truth teller. So for those of you who work with me in one-on-one coaching or mastery and momentum, or even in the Institute for Redefining Wealth, and you're always saying, Coach, why are you snatching my edges? Why are you doing me like this? Let me tell you, I am a baby edge snatcher in relationship to the Varian Brandon. I go easy on you. If you knew the way Varian went hard on me, you would simmer down sometimes. But that's neither here nor there. Today, she's here to help us explore what boundaries really look like. And she's going to, I know, talk about what she thinks about boundaries, because I recall one conversation where she told me boundaries were straight up dumb. But anyway, this is about being committed to living in truth and walking unafraid of offense. So after this week's affirmation, which we are calling this season Permission Slip, the next thing you'll hear is my conversation with my coach, Varian Brandon. This week's permission slip is, I give myself permission to walk in offense, knowing that my truth will not always be convenient or comfortable. I trust that honoring my peace is far more important than keeping up appearances. I release the need to manage how others respond to my authenticity, and I hold space for them to honor their own. I choose conviction over compliance or the norm, even when it offends. And I know that walking in offense is really walking in freedom, and I'm going to choose freedom every single time. Declare with me today, I give myself permission to walk in offense. Welcome back to the Redefining Wealth podcast, Varian.
Hey, girl, I'm over here going, amen, when you're reading the permission slip. I'm like, yes, amen. You read them every single time.
Every time. Okay, Varian, I just have to ask, how many podcast interviews do you even do?
I don't do many. So this is a treat.
This is a treat. When I tell you guys this is a treat, let me tell you, when Varian got on the camera today, I was like, I don't even know the last time I've seen Varian. She spoke she led us through a really powerful session 2 Scaling Joy retreats ago. We happened to do near Orlando, and she came out, and after she was gone, everyone was like, oh, I get it now. I see why you behave this way. I see why you behave this way. So when I tell you that it is a treat to get to have this time and share this space with you, and for me to see you, because our coaching calls are on the phone and I don't get to see you, it means a lot to me. And I know you know how much Rachel meant to me and what doing this season means in many ways. So when I was reading this chapter about walking in offense, I said, oh, I know the perfect person. Let's just start with, what does walking in offense even mean to you?
When I think about walking in offense, it's just living, because truth is offensive. Authenticity is offensive. Clarity is offensive. So for some of us, to walk in offense means to live your truth. It means to live in authenticity. It doesn't even mean to do anything outside of the ordinary for people like me, for people like you, for people like your listeners and your clients, because I'm sure they've been oriented in this way over the years listening to you. And I definitely know your clients have been oriented this way. So it's not even something that you do intentionally or you have to think about. When you are committed to truth, when you are committed to your authenticity, when you are committed to clarity, offense is a byproduct. It just is.
Mm-hmm. So you can't be scared of it.
No, you can't be scared of it, but I understand in the beginning why some people are, because most people have been oriented, conditioned to people please, to seek approval, to seek being liked, to seek fitting in. So in the beginning, if this is not your natural orientation, or if you have not been conditioned this way, it can be scary, because we are humans, right? We were built to be together. We were built to be in relationship. And so in the beginning, it starts to feel strange, because when people start to really walk in truth, really start to be their authentic selves, they have to be able to handle the impact of that in the world and the response that comes with that. And so in the beginning, for novices, I'll say that way, I can totally understand why it's scary. So it's scary, but it's necessary from my perspective.
Why is it necessary? Why can't I just go my entire life like getting validation from other people, accepting whatever people decide to give me? Why is embracing offense a necessary thing?
Here's the funny part. You can live your whole life doing all the things that you named, and you won't even realize how miserable a life it was until the end. And a lot of people do that. If there's an article that I read years ago about the 5 regrets of the dying, you may have read it, you may have come across it. And one of the things is that I did not do the things that I wanted to do. I did not live the life that I wanted to live. I lived according to other people. And so these are people on their deathbed having the regret of not being willing to offend. Now, of course, they didn't language it that way, but that's the whole premise, right? The reason why people don't live the way they want to live, the reason they don't do the way that they want to do, is because of that lack of approval that they don't want to, feel. They don't want to be disliked. They don't want to be ostracized. And so a lot of people, I would venture to say most people, live their entire lives not walking in the freedom because they're afraid to offend.
Yeah. So what's the first step in unpacking that, Varian? Like, if you're sitting here listening or you're watching this and you're thinking, man, there's a lot of things that I'm not giving myself permission to do because I don't want to offend my parents or my significant other or random people on the internet, or I don't want to disrupt the norm. Like, you consistently disrupt the norm. I hear about the ways that you launch things or the ways that you make your offers and all the stuff. And I even know how I came into being your client. I just sent you a DM and then you sent me a screenshot of something. And I was like, There's no complicated funnel, and you're not sending me to this website, and I'm not getting on all these calls, jumping through all these hoops. And you're like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. How are you like this and so successful? That's what people want to know.
First I have to give the credit to my mother. She raised me this way. And so it was a seed that was planted by her that, and I don't even think she knew exactly what she was doing. She was carrying on from what her grandmother instilled in her. But what she instilled in me is that, and she didn't language it this way, but you are actually born with the right of your own agency. When I was 7 years old, I can remember, I don't know if I said this story before on the podcast, but I had this friend named Margie Garlock. Your podcast is so popular. Hey, Margie, if you happen to come across this, but I was 7 years old. And so she was my good friend in elementary school. And she got mad at me and said she didn't want to be my friend anymore. So I stormed home. At that time, we lived close to the school. So I walked to school and home. I stormed in the house. And as my mother does, how was school? How was your day? And all that. And like, Margie said she didn't want to be my friend. My mama, right? So I'm expecting her, you need to get on this train with me. Margie's horrible. She's a bad little girl, not wanting to be my friend. You need to be on this train with me. My mother looks at me and she goes, She goes, well, it's nothing wrong with Margie not wanting to be your friend. What do you mean? And she said, she gets to choose who she wants to be friends with. Just like you get to choose. Doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. Doesn't anything's wrong with her. It's her preference. It's no different between if you like chicken or you like pork chop. There's nothing wrong with either. You have a preference. I did not know that at 7 years old, my mother was inoculating me as it relates to approval of people, and really, really made me understand that I was encoded with my own agency when I came to this earth. When I came out of eternity into time, I came with freedom. Life conditions it out of us. Not always malicious. Most time it's not malicious, but life conditions us out of our freedom. And so when I'm thinking about it, and when I start talking to people about living in truth and authenticity, first you have to embrace your right to do it. Most people don't even embrace their right to do it.
Because when you think about the choices that you would make from freedom, many of us are still going, I want to do this thing, but I wonder if so-and-so is going to be okay with it. I would love to do this thing, but that's not the industry norm. I would love to do this thing. And there's always a but or a because. And then everything after that becomes a story that we hold on to more than we hold on to the embracing the fact that we came in this world with the agency to choose.
And what happens is, because most people haven't developed the language of freedom. They have not developed the language of freedom, the language of authenticity, the language of clarity. And so what they think about, even when it's not conscious, they're subconsciously thinking about, what am I going to do when the world, whether it be friends, family, etc., peers, colleagues, whatever, clients, what am I going to do when the world pushes back on my choice? And because they don't have the language, they don't know what to do. And so then they just acquiesce to whatever is. Not many people are comfortable in saying, because I want to, or because I don't want to.
And Varian will say that straight face and log off, like, because I want to, because I don't want to. And that is a part of how, Varian and I were in like a travel group before she became my coach. That's how we met. And we had gone to like France and Belize and Barbados all these trips. I remember that when we were in France, we did a tour. Every time I see you, I just have to, this story. We ended up doing a tour that one of our girlfriends booked. And we were in this little cramped van doing this tour forever around Nice, France. It was the never ending. And I remember, and it was so hot, and I was like cramped, and I'm tall, and we were in the back. It was so uncomfortable. And I was like, I will never in my life sign up to do a group tour ever again. And I'm proud to say it's been about 8 years. Never again have I signed up to, if a tour bus even came out, I said, not on my watch.
Private car, please. Private car tour.
Only. And it's so funny, and I say that, but it was just one of those times where I remembered why I have to choose things for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I know who I am and I know what I like. I know what I don't like. And it's just one of those times that illustrates for me what happens when I outsource like my stuff, like how I want to move, how I want to live, what I want to do. Every time I end up outsourcing something, I get what other people think is acceptable, and then I'm miserable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because people have been conditioned to be part of the normals. And so because you're conditioned to be part of the normals, it's hard to step aside and say, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, the whole group, not saying this is what our friends were saying.
This is not what happened there.
Right. This is not what happened there at all. But the whole group is going on. So that's good. I'll meet you there. What time do I need? I'll meet you there. But to stand alone requires strength. It requires willingness to lose, which you know a lot about. It requires that. I can remember years ago, I was at a landmark. Some of you may know landmark. I was at a landmark session thingamajig, and it was about 150 people in the room. And so the landmark leader, they were up doing their thing. And if you know landmark can be, depending on what program, it can be really forceful, can be kind of cultish. And so the leader were up in the room. She was talking about, we was getting ready to begin the weekend. And she was like, nobody gets left behind. Nobody gets left behind. Everybody, you make sure that everybody goes with us into this journey. And she was like, and if you're committed to that, stand up. 149 people in the room stood up.
Except you.
You can probably guess who the lone wolf was. And the leader's like, there's somebody over here not standing up. And then there's this whole dialogue, because it was like, no, I'm not committed to that. I came here for me. I don't know these people. Now you want me to just lie because I don't know these people. So I am not committed to what you just said. And it's, a lot of people wouldn't be able to do that because they don't want 149 people looking at them. And it's not always easy in a setting like that, but I'm so committed to me, and I'm committed to my clarity and my truth, that it's like I'm willing to sit in discomfort. I'm willing to be in disorientation in order to maintain my own agency.
Yeah, you alluded to the willing to lose concept, which I have embraced wholeheartedly. And many of you have heard me talk about this on this podcast or at Redefining Wealth Live, or pretty much on any platform I've been on in the last several years now, because it was leading up to my 40th birthday that I had the conversation with Varian. And you said, what would you be willing to lose to have everything that you believe God has called you to? And I knew the first answer, but I went on to make a list and do everything under the sun. If you remember, I was renovating kitchens, I was changing out wardrobes, I was doing any and everything under the sun, because I was not ready to face what I knew to be true about what I was willing to lose. And for me at the time, it was my marriage. And so because I say my marriage, people, you've seen things that people said about me online, and a lot of things that have come from that. And even with that, I was willing to lose their opinion of why I made the decision that I made, because in making that decision, I was willing to lose the belief that to be loved, I had to perform in a certain way. I was willing to lose people's perception of whatever my marriage, whatever they thought it was. I was willing to lose any number of things. And since then, Varian, when I teach it at Redefining Wealth Live, I usually say, there's these 4 areas that I had to start thinking about this through. And it's what beliefs, what behaviors, what people or possessions am I willing to lose? And I take myself through this. When I say it feels like every day, it feels like every day I have to come to a conversation about what I'm willing to lose to stand in my truth. Like to be okay with whatever other people think about me, whatever you think about me, because at the end of the day, I know me. I know who I am, what I carry, and why I do what I do. And this work for the last 5 years or so that we've been doing, 4 years, it's almost 5 years. It's going on 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Woo, when I think about the ups and downs of this season, and had I not even had that one framework, but all of the things that I have learned just in being in this intimate opportunity to work with you and coach with you, I would have been out here tap dancing and sugarcoating and people pleasing. And that comes even up for powerful women. I don't know why people think that because you've amassed a certain level of success or platform or accolades that somehow there's still not this inability sometimes to sit in your truth and own your truth. And I genuinely believe that the more eyeballs that are on you, the harder it becomes.
Yes. Absolutely. That's what I was going to say. It's even more so for powerful, high capacity women, because without intent and without really monitoring, the bigger your audience, the bigger your impact, the bigger your wealth, the expectations of people can seep in. You can really try to manage your image in a certain way. And so the bigger you are, the more intentional you have to be about your authenticity and about your truth. And how you say, you still to this day have to think about it. Absolutely. I always tell people authenticity is not a box you check. It is a moment by moment decision. It is never going to be a box that's checked. Oh, I don't have to think about it anymore, because life is always giving you a reason to abandon yourself. It is always giving you a reason to abandon yourself. It is always checking to see if you are who you say you are.
Ooh, life is always giving you a reason to abandon yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That is so true. That is so true. It's funny. I had never seen Devil's Advocate, and I watched it for the first time recently. And the whole premise about, basically, I'm going to butcher this, but it was just so interesting that the subject, Keanu Reeves, believes that he's won some moral victory, but then he gets at the end and the devil just repackaged it, and he clearly fails, but he walks off like, I did that. And it's like life brought him another opportunity to see if he would actually choose what was right, but vanity got the best of him again. It just was packaged in a different form, and he was like, yeah, I did that. And then the devil appears again, and you're like, doggone it. It's like, because if you think it's something that is a one and done and I checked it off, you are sadly mistaken. It is not a one and done. Yeah. Transformation has a requirement, and that requirement is that you cannot do it alone. Mastery Momentum is my exclusive mastermind for high achieving women who've already made an impact, but there's another level waiting for you. This is where your brilliance meets humanity with open arms. You get to walk in as the powerhouse that you are and still have space to say, I don't know. And you will be supported through the range of all of the emotions that come with that. So if you are ready to grow with women who match your ambition and honor your authenticity, I want to encourage you to apply now. Space is limited and enrollment only happens a few times a year. So go to masteryandmomentum.com. That's masteryandmomentum.com. So Varian, something that I alluded to in the intro, and I want you to talk about, is boundaries. So a lot of times when people are hearing all this walk in offense, what they think, and Rachel talks about it in that chapter, she does talk about boundaries, but I clearly recall a conversation I was having with you. This is years ago now. And I don't remember all of the context. I just remember you saying boundaries are dumb. And I was like, oh, here we go. I was like, now here we go. All right. So you laughed hard because I know I know this is one of your beliefs anyway. So let's talk about it.
Yes, boundaries. I mean, I get it. Okay. All you people who love boundaries, I get it. I get it. Boundaries are a necessary thing for some. What I think of boundaries is like training wheels for real power. That's what it is. It's training wheels for real power, because when you have real power, you don't need boundaries. When you have real power, like I tell people, I don't even use the term boundaries or I have a boundary, because I am the boundary. I am the boundary. When you have real power, you don't need boundaries. Boundaries are for people who are not yet comfortable exercising their full power. So the boundary becomes the scapegoat, right? You know what? Oh, I have a boundary. It's almost like a parent. I can't do that because I have a boundary. My boundaries, they tried to cross my boundaries. I don't need any of that when I'm in full power. I make decisions. And when I make decisions, it automatically lets the world, lets the environment know how to engage with me. I don't have to have boundaries. And so that's why when people are always talking about boundaries, it just agitates me, but I get it, and some people need that. That's on your way. You on your way. I get it. You on your way to real power. So, go with your little boundaries on your little training wheels of power, and you'll eventually get there. I get it. But just let me tell you, if that's something that you use a lot and you're always setting boundaries, just know you're on your way to power. You're not in real power yet.
Woo! Okay, so see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? Go off on your little training wheels. This is the type of stuff. No, and of course, again, I understand what you're saying. And I always tell you this too. Sherry Salata taught me the term governing decisions. And so I just make decisions and then I decide to live from those decisions. And that's pretty much what it is. Like I have adapted a lot of that as well, but more so from the idea that it's even too tiresome, I would say, to have to keep telling people stuff. I just act as if, for example, when people go, they cross my boundary of calling me after 11. You can call it 11, 10, 12, 1, 2. It wouldn't even bother me because I'm already living that. I don't even look at the phone after time because I don't want to. And so, I don't have to say this is my boundary. When I call you back tomorrow or the next day, then that's when we'll talk. I'm not really worried about saying it. I think sometimes we feel, like you said, boundary is the scapegoat, like, oh, I have to tell them what my boundary is, as opposed to just live from whatever decisions you made.
Because it's uncomfortable for people. Because the thing is, if you are not clear for yourself, and if you happen to see that phone ringing, now it causes all kinds of disruption within you because you don't want to answer it, but they calling, what they gonna think about me not answering it. And so now you're in all of this turbulence. And that's why you feel like you need to have boundaries. You know why? Because you want to control other people's behavior so you don't have to decide. See, that's what a boundary does. A boundary tries to control another person's behavior so you don't have to make the decision. So the boundary is, do not call me after 9:30 because you don't want to feel that turbulence. Like you said, call all day if you want to, because the phone won't be answered. Like when people call me, and if I happen to answer the phone, they say, is this a good time? Are you talking to me? If it wasn't a good time, I wouldn't have even picked up the phone. So you don't even have to answer me those kind of questions. People can't come to my house without calling. You can come to my house without calling. The door won't be open. You won't know if I'm in here, but you can do whatever you want. I don't try to control other people. I control what I control, and that is me. Do whatever the heck you want.
But that's the thing about standing in that type of power. It allows you to just also, as Christine Hassler says, give people the dignity of their own process. Yes. Like, you can do what you want, but it reminds me of this story I used to tell Varian. My house in Southern California in South Pasadena had these huge windows on the side. Right. And you could look straight through the house. It was a huge house, went all the way back. And so people would show up unannounced and then feel like because they could see me in there, that meant that I had to answer. And so my kitchen table was like all the way back, but you could tell if someone was sitting there if you looked through that window. And there was a time that somebody came and they rang the doorbell and I was doing something, and I may have been like on a Facebook Live, or I don't know what it was, but I was fully engaged with what I was doing. And I looked to the right and I saw the people and I saw them going like this in my window, and I did not move. And I know that they were offended, but you didn't announce that you were coming. You don't know what I have going on, what I'm doing. I'm not about to stop this to come give you a disclaimer or tell you anything. And yeah, they went on to be mad because they were in the area and thought they would stop by. But I did have a thing about, just because I work from home, that doesn't mean any and everybody can just come through whenever they feel like. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a decision I had made
Mm-hmm.
long before that moment. And this is the thing about, I think, really standing in your power and making these governing decisions, things that you just like, I've decided this is how I want to live, or this is whatever it is. It doesn't matter the person.
Right.
Like, you know, and I think this is why people have maybe weak boundaries, is because they say something, but then when it's their mom, they're like, oh, but it's my mama.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or it's your friend. It's like, oh, but we've been friends for 15 years. It's like, is this the way you're going to live or not? Is this what you are deciding to live from or not? Because you can't change it every single time. I mean, you can if you want to, but that's also tiresome. Like, and it's confusing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yesterday, my mother wanted to go to church, a little church that's about 40 minutes away from us in a little city called Taft. She's 88, so she doesn't drive. And so she had asked me would I take her out there. And so, yeah, I took her out there and I sat in the parking lot until she was done. It happened to be an early service. And so they got out early. And so I was like, oh, that was quick when we were driving home. She was like, yeah, I know you're glad about that it's shorter than what it was. I said, it didn't make me any never mind, because when I gave you my yes, it didn't matter how long you stayed, because I don't give yeses that are not real. I don't say yes and mean no. I take the scripture of the Bible and say, let your yes be yes and your no be no. I take that real seriously. It's like, so if I give you a yes, it's a real yes. If I give you a no, it's a real no. That type of clarity, a lot of people aren't used to that, because people don't live in that type of clarity, because clarity can be offensive to a world that is used to cushioning and disclaimers and all of those types of things. And so when you really live from a place of decision, like I said, you become the boundary, and your energy emits standards. Your energy emits, I govern myself, I govern my space. Your energy begins to emit that out into the world. And so the reason why is someone who has a lot of boundaries, the reason why you have to have a lot of boundaries is not even that your boundaries are weak, your energy is weak, because your energy is signaling to the world, you can cross, you can cross, you can cross. My energy tell you from a mile away.
It does.
Caution. Caution tape is all around. Caution tape is all around.
Okay,
you know I'm crazy.
So
you know
right,
I'm crazy, Patricia.
Right. But so the thing about that is, you are one of the kindest, most down to earth, cool, fun people like ever. And I suspect that one of the reasons that some people are even afraid of when you say there's the caution, right? My energy gives, I ain't the one. They think that that means that you show up mean or guarded or like with this like funky energy. And I'm like, why do people assume? Like, I've had people say, even about me, they're like, oh, I bet she's just unagreeable or disagreeable, or I bet she's just, and I'm like, I'm probably one of the kindest people, not nice. I'm one of the kindest people and one of the coolest people you'll ever meet, because I get along with darn near everybody. Like, you have to work really hard to get on my absolute nerve, like, because I'm cool.
Yeah.
But also don't play with me.
Absolutely. And people who have a strong sense of self, they are willing to cross the street to know. People who don't have a strong sense of self, they will stay on the other side of the street and assume. And I'm okay with that. If you assume, you know, it's so funny. I remember years ago, this lady at church, once we became friends, she was like, you know, I didn't like you when I first met you. And I was like, really? She was like, yeah, but you just kept hugging me every Sunday until I just had to like you. I was like, oh, you should have told me you didn't like me, girl, because I would never know. Because it's like, if you think you're not speaking to me or looking away or whatever's going to signal anything to me, it won't, because I don't assume those types of things. And so it's like, if people have a good sense of self, it's not fear that they feel. The way I would describe it is they feel the standard. And so then they get triggered by what that standard will cause them to be in your presence, even in small amounts. And that's why if you're not self-aware, it will feel like it's is something you don't want to go into, because if you don't have a good sense of self, when you step into power, that's what power does. I mean, if you don't have a good sense of your own power, when you come in contact with power, you will shrink. Mm-hmm. Even if the power is not trying to make you shrink, that's just what will happen.
Yeah.
And then because you shrink, you think it's the power. You don't realize it's your lack of power that's making you shrink, not the power that exists. The power that exists actually is open and welcome and kind and everything. It's your lack of power, your lack of remembering your own power. I'll say it that way, because the power is still there, but it's your disconnect from your own power that will make you shrink.
Yeah. And this is why the containers that we create are so needed. Mm-hmm. It is to remind brilliant people, women in particular, I think in our space, but brilliant people, of the power they already have. Because I always say to my clients too, and especially in Mastery Momentum, if you're attracted to me, it is the power in you that recognizes the power in me. Absolutely. And me walking in authenticity and alignment is just calling it out of you. It's just, it's a magnetic thing, which is why I was drawn to you. And I sent you that DM and you were like, girl, she sent me laughing emojis. I was like, I don't know what's funny, but as I said, I want you to be my coach.
I'm serious.
Yeah, I was like, I'm actually serious. No, because there was, and I love the way that you said that. It was in with all the women I'm sure that you coach, many of the women you coach, but also the women in my space and the people that I coach and in Mastery Momentum. It is this, like, it's not about them not having what I have. It's about what they can see and feel and experience with me, around me. It's just the part of them that has that is like, oh, I want more of that. I want that to be called forth. I liken it to when I was at Essence Festival many years ago, and Lisa Nichols walked off the stage. And there was this energy of just how she delivered on stage that I was like, I want that. I want that. But then the very first time that I, worked with her and I did a VIP day with her, this is over 10 years ago now, did a VIP day with her. She was like, oh, I see that all in you. Like, I didn't even describe to her what I felt when I saw her on stage. But what she reflected back to me was basically, I see so much of myself in you. And Absolutely. That's the same thing that I felt with you. I was like, I know I have that. But I used to say, you were the younger version of what I experienced my grandma to be. Like, I hadn't seen it. So even when you talked about what the Bible says, let your yes be your yes and your no be your no, I've talked about that my whole life because my granny used to say that. And it really gave me this, like, when people say things like, oh, we should get together, I'd be like, and they're like, oh, people never. I'm like, well, I only say it if I mean it. If I don't want to get together, I'm just not going to tell you. But I've been doing that for like 20 years, right? But I remember when I was younger, I used to say, oh, I can't wait till I'm old so I can just tell people what I want to say. Because I thought that level of directness was reserved for folks with a head full of gray hair.
Oh, you thought because your grandmother was doing it, you were like, oh, I can't wait to be my grandmother's age.
Yeah, I just literally, it's just, I didn't know. I hadn't really seen someone operate in that way. And to your point, it was never necessarily what you were saying. It was who you were being that I was like, oh, but I'm like, Varian not that old. She's not that much older than me. What is that going on right there? And I was like, oh, I want to understand what is happening, because why have I created a story that I have to wait? And so coming into my 40th birthday, when we started working together, is when I was like, no, I think I'm old enough. I think it's about time. I think it's about time.
Absolutely. What I have this framework that I call the progression of power, and it's known power, owned power, and shown power. High capacity women, what I have found is most high capacity women, until they become trained for themselves, they start training themselves, they are very comfortable in known power. They're very comfortable. They find themselves very comfortable in shown power. Known power is your credentials, what you know, your degrees, your training, all of those types of things, which is why a lot of women, until they really get in own power, what do? They want to get more degrees. They want to get more training, because they're comfortable in that place. Shown power, that's your mastery. That's stepping on stage, if you will. Not literally stages like you step on. It could be that, but you step on the stage of your life and the knowledge that you have, the experience that you have, now that's on stage. That's your mastery. But you can't live in either one of those. It's owned power. And that's your sense of certainty. Owned power is where you can live, but conditioning of life and society, they only prop you up with known power or shown power. And so you never have the opportunity to really develop owned power. That's why I liken it to high capacity women have a lot of external power. A lot of them make a whole lot of money, but it's like a column. Have you ever seen those columns? When I was in Greece, Greece is my favorite country, and you see all those columns and they are just solid. You see those here in America, but if you go up to it and you knock on it, it's hollow. And that's what a lot of high capacity women, that's what their frame is, because nobody has really trained them or told them you have own power. You have certainty that if you lock that in, yes, you can lean into and visit known power, shown power. But this is where you live. This is what makes you grounded and solid and makes neither one of these anything you will sell yourself for. But without this, you're hanging by the seat of your pants in these when that's where you're supposed to visit, but not where you're supposed to live.
Yeah. I did not know about that progression of power framework. And it's so interesting. Like for years too, I've been saying it's one thing to know it, it's another thing to own it. And I've known that for myself. I mean, I think that's true with everything. When I think about faith as a child, like it was one thing to know certain things because, I knew things that my grandma would teach me and I knew the verses that she would share and all that. And you can say it all day. You can rehearse it. You can post it on in your little bio on Instagram and all those things. But I can tell by, first of all, my own questions when I'm not owning it. Like I can say the things and this is why you've been my coach for almost 5 years, because you don't let me play around. You give me out of an hour coaching call, she give me about 10 minutes. I know I have to get all of the things out. She gave me about 10 minutes. And then it's an edge snatching from there. No, but right. But when I'm even coaching in my own community, I can tell when people know the words, but won't own the work. Like, the words, you're saying all the right things, but nothing about this question is sharing that you actually believe what you're saying to be true for yourself. Like you're not owning this. You're not standing on this 10 toes down. This is just like a little idea that you visit once in a while. And maybe you visit long enough to get a certain result, but then it's fleeting. Like whatever that result is very fleeting. And then we're back in the spiral.
Absolutely. Because it's not embodied. It's almost like you mentioned 10 toe down made me think of person I love from your hometown,
Nipsey Hussle.
And Nipsey would often say, it's not on me, it's in me. And so it's like, that's the embodiment, the integration of it. So many people, their wisdom sits on them, and that's different than your wisdom being in you. Your decision sits on you. That's different than it being in you. And so the embodiment is what really matters. It's like, but embodiment really takes decision. It takes you being willing to live from a place where I call it being internally referenced. Most people are externally referenced. And if you are externally referenced, then you are going to move with whatever the external is doing. And to be internally referenced, it takes courage, it takes practice, it takes intention. So absolutely, it's a nice thing. And like you say, it may work to get a certain result, but people can feel the difference between what you know and who you are.
Amen. Absolutely. Oh, when you said that wisdom sits on them rather than being in, that is, oh. But I really think, to reflect back on Rachel's point from this chapter about walking in offense, it really was about embodying your truth, like living from truth. And to your point, owning it as you go about the space. I always like to say, you're free to get up and roam the cabin, like move about the cabin. And owning it as you roam about the cabin because you really believe that thing, you embody it. You're not walking around, like you said, trying to give people what you gonna do and what you're not gonna do. Let me tell you my boundaries and all of that. You don't need to. You just are moving about the cabin with that conviction that says she knows who she is, she knows what she believes, she knows what she carries, and I can share anything that I want. And
it is what it is. And I think
yeah.
you said, Rick said something about your offense quotient or something.
Yeah.
That's what I call, because you have to train your nervous system to be able to handle the turbulence of authenticity, to handle the turbulence of truth, because that's why many people, of course, they shy away from it because it will cause turbulence. But one thing I researched several years ago is that a plane, have you ever been on a plane and you go through turbulence and it starts to shake, right? And here's me with my crazy self, I'm holding on to the side, I'm bracing my feet on the floor, like that's gonna do anything. I'm in the plane. You can't like I act like I got the brake, So I'm bracing. It's because it's turbulence. But what I learned through my research is there has never, and I want you to hear me, there has never been a plane crash because of turbulence. Ever. Because the plane was built with turbulence in mind. And you too, your listeners, you were built with turbulence in mind. But the only way you know that you're not going to crash is you got to allow yourself to be in the turbulence. And so when you walk in a fence, the way that Rachel says it, what makes you turn back? What makes you get paralyzed on that walk is because when the turbulence starts, guess what? You think you're going to die. You think you're going to crash. You think you're going down. It may shake, but it's not going down. And so you have to build your nervous system to the capacity that you understand what the shake is. The shake is you rising to higher levels. What does a pilot usually say? We feel a little turbulence. We're going to go up. We're going to take this plane up. We're going to go up above the turbulence. Or what will he say? Just hold on for a few minutes. It's not going to last long. We'll soon be through. And so you have to understand that your response to turbulence means, you know what? I'll soon be through, but I'm still going where I'm going.
Ooh.
Or your response to turbulence needs to be, you know what? I'll rise above it, but I'm still going where I'm going. There is no time you've ever been on a plane and it starts to shake and it stops. No. It keeps going. And so that's what we do. We condition and we build our capacity in our nervous system to handle the shake. And then after a while, you begin to understand the shake. And now I'll sit through the shake. It's not as bad anymore. You sit through the shake and you just like, you know what, it's going to shake, but it'll be over soon. But I'm still going where I'm going.
But I'm still going where I'm going. I'm still going where I'm going. And I think about, for me, being visible now for so long, I remember some of that turbulence for me used to be people's comments or, and I used to many years ago want to prove them like wrong, like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. You don't, and this and that. And I would read reviews and read comments and do all this stuff, like wanting to respond to people or feeling bad for days and all this stuff. And after my divorce, not too long ago, maybe it's a couple years ago now, there was like a whole YouTube video or something somebody made, and I was the premise of it somehow, or they used my story and incorrectly and stuff. And the person who sent it to me sent me I'm so ashamed of you. It's so disappointed. It was disappointing. I'm so disappointed email and sent the link to this thing. Baby, I responded to her. So responded to her, not to get her approval or agreement or anything, just to like, girl, be mad at your mom. No, I'm kidding. No, I just responded to her. And I remember telling Varian, I was like, and I'm not listening. I'm not going to go look at that. I know who I am and what I carry. I know why I made the choices that I made to say the things that I've said or not said about my former marriage and all those things. And I'm just, the turbulence comes with it.
Absolutely. One of the biggest flexes you can have is to allow people to be wrong about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, just allow people to be wrong. That's one of the reasons that people can't do what you do. And I mean, you're on stages around the world, internationally, thousands upon thousands of people. it would be so easy for, and I'm sure it has happened before, for people to take clips of what you say and take it out of context and say other things. And that's scary for people. But once the message is in the world, you have to let the message live. And the part of the freedom of being someone like you who speaks on these stages, you understand that. And it's like allowing people to be wrong about you is one of the biggest power flexes you can have. Because what it is, people don't want people to have the wrong thought about them. It's like, you know what? That's a big power flex to understand that not only are you willing to, that people will have wrong thoughts about you and be able to be okay with it until those times where you got time today. And that's what you were describing, well, okay, I got time today. Let me engage with you.
Yeah.
Not because I care about what you're thinking, but because this is sport for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a really respectful, disrespectful read. And it was just, it was very nice. Then, but I'm proud of myself. I think I start a lot of our coaching sessions with that, just that I'm proud of the woman I have become. I'm proud of the woman I'm becoming. Sometimes I tell you about just like the ability to stand in my power. Like when I look at how I'm navigating decisions and life choices at this time and think about former seasons where I'm like, oh, I know my 35-year-old self is so proud of me. She like, yes, girl, do because you can. Because you can, absolutely. I am so proud of that work, and I am grateful to have had you as my coach for this long. Before you, Varian, I genuinely thought that coaching was like you do like a little 6-week, little 12-week program, and then you go find somebody else and find somebody else. But what I learned, you've been the only coach that I've like had for this for more than, I don't know, 3 months or something. Like you've been the only coach that I've had. And I'm so grateful because you epitomized for me what it looks like to do life with people.
Yeah.
And it is definitely the same desire I hold now that I've had women in my programs and in Mastery Momentum and working with me for long periods of time. I'm like, you want people who know, like who really know you and can help you hold that line. And you told me this, you said, you don't work with me. You didn't need me to be successful. You were already successful. Right. But I recognize I like who I am. And I like the standard that I hold for myself because of the proximity that I have. Right. And not because you're telling me what to do, because you never tell me what to do, but because of what you embody, it always holds front, like top of mind, reminds me of who I am and what I embody. Can I look at you from a distance and be like, dang, there she goes again? Maybe possibly, but there's something about just the conversations that we have I can't even put into words.
But Patrice, I think that's the misunderstanding a lot of people have about coaching. A lot of people think coaching is remedial. And I guess in some instances it can be. But for when you're walking with giants, like you said in your intro, when you are dealing with peers and high capacity individuals, it's not remedial at all. It's about sourcing your life with what you need to be your most expansive, your most transformative self. And that's what you are one of the best at, Patrice. I mean, you source your life with everything you need. You are really like an elite athlete. You are a pro athlete in the sport of living and impact. That's what I call it. It's no different than like LeBron. I remember years ago, LeBron talked about how he spent $2 million, I think it was, on his body in all different sorts of ways, physical, food, and everything, how he spent $2 million a year on that. He is resourcing and sourcing the thing that is a part of his impact in the world. And I think that's what people don't understand, that yes, some type of coaching is remedial, but what we have, it's more like trusted advisor. It's a private counsel, private advisory, where the giants surround themselves with equally yet different minds to make sure that this impact they've been called to in the world gets into the world the way it's supposed to get into the world, and that they are maintained while they do it, because a lot of people do that, but they lose themselves and they lose the way that they want to do it out in the world. And so you're one of the best at that. And your audience has such a great example, because there's not many people who have the platform that you have the success that you have, yet you pull back the curtain all the time and you show people the duality, that your divinity and your humanity coexists, and how that moves and walk together. That you see this woman on stage speaking to thousands of people with the audience in the palm of her hand. But when you come off that stage, you honor your humanity and you protect that too. You're such a dynamic example of that. It's really extraordinary.
Thank you.
Because you're Patrice who? Patrice bleeping
Washington. I am Patrice bleeping Washington, and I probably have the sticky on my... Can you make that out? Yes, I have the sticky right here. I have a bunch of Varianisms. I always have a little sticky on my desk from something that Varian has said. And man, so grateful. You're starting something new. What can I share in the show notes about what you'll be doing?
Yeah, you can tell your audience they can check me out at variansvoice.com. That's Varian, then with the S, and voice.com. And so Patrice knows I have not historically done an email list, but I've decided that I'm going to do an email list. But with everything that I do, I have to do it in a way that is really representative of me, and also a way that's going to be fun for me and sustainable. And so I was thinking about it, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do is my version of like a living newsletter, where it'll be a broadcast channel where people can hear me several times a week, you know, raw calibrations, thoughts, drops. And so it's a way that you can stay connected, get connected to my voice in small doses, the way that Patrice gets to hear me in this wonderful work that we do. But I think it'll be fun. It's a way that people can stay connected to my voice and bring them into my world in a way that they can then begin to do other things if they choose. So varianvoice.com, go there and come to the broadcast channel and hang out.
Listen, y'all, first of all, you're in for a treat. And second of all, y'all lucky. Because again, when I say, people ask me all the time, who is your coach? Who is your coach? What's her website? I couldn't tell you. I don't know if she has a website. Did she write a book? Oh, I wouldn't be able to. I don't think so. She has a podcast. Barely been on mine. She's come on mine. I'm always like, listen, if you have an opportunity to glean, and I know several of the clients from Mastery and Momentum who had a chance to experience you in 2023. I know because I see them commenting on your Facebook.
Oh, on Facebook, yeah. So
I know
they're there too, yeah.
Yeah, they're over on Facebook. But yeah, this is going to be a treat for us all. So I will be joining y'all over there to get these little nuggets of wisdom, because Varian has no shortage of Varianisms to deliver. Varian, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This has been so fun, so fun.
So fun. Thank you so much. You guys, I'm going to link to what Varian told us, Varian's Voices, variansvoice.com. We will link to that in the show notes. But listen, as Varian said, most people spend their lives trying not to offend, but here's the truth. Clarity in itself is offensive in a world that does thrive on us cushioning who we are and cushioning what we need to say. You were born with agency, with freedom, and with the right to choose for yourself. But we know that life has a way of conditioning or programming that freedom right out of us. That's why it's not that we need boundaries per se. We don't need that as a scapegoat, because we know, as Varian says, those are training wheels for your power. The real thing is understanding that I am the boundary and I have the right to walk in offense. Authenticity isn't a box that we get to check once and for all. It is a moment-to-moment decision to sit in discomfort, to govern our own energy, and to refuse yeses that just are not real. The bigger your calling, the greater the pressure to abandon yourself. That is why Mastery and Momentum exists. That's why the doors are open right now. And I'm going to invite you to come in and check it out, masteryandmomentum.com. I'm still reviewing applications every day, but we do get started on October 8th. And I would love for you to join me there, because this power that we have, if you felt anything in Varian's voice or my voice, it is just a reminder to you that that's the same power that you carry. Sometimes it just gets a little covered up. So as you leave this conversation, remember that life is always going to hand you reasons to step away from who you are. But wisdom lives in those who train their nervous system to withstand the turbulence of authenticity. So we're not going to shrink. We're not going to keep cushioning. We will embrace our right to stand in truth, even if it offends. Because as Rachel says, walking in offense is not about being reckless. It is about being free. And I hope this episode reminds you that you were born to be free. I'm so grateful that you spent this time with us. Please rate and review the podcast. Come on into the Redefining Wealth app and check us out there, where these are the standard conversations. This is the norm in my world. And I really pray that this is the type of language that rubs off on you and reminds you what you get to embody as well. Until next week, I want you to go live your life's purpose, find fulfillment, and earn more without ever feeling like you have to chase money. We'll talk to you later.